Over the last 2 weeks as a type 1 diabetic, I got more sick than I have ever been in like the last decade. And while it absolutely wreaked havoc on my blood sugars, and you can probably still tell I'm a little stuffed up still, I'm almost through it. But there was a phrase that got me through the hardest of times when I literally could not get out of bed. And it really rings true with the difficulties that we face as people living with type 1 diabetes, where we face this disease that has no end, right? Where it can feel easy to lose hope, to burn out, and to want to give up. And this single phrase I've now adopted as my new mantra. So I want to give you this phrase. I wanted to share with you a lesson on the mindset side of things that allowed me to gain a new perspective to not only give me more hope in managing this disease, but also to fuel me in my pursuit of greater things outside of just blood sugar control. If you don't know who I am, my name is Matt Van de Vecht. I'm a certified master fitness trainer and nutritionist, and this phrase has also come to mind in my Ironman races more recently, where when you're facing something that feels like it's the hardest thing you've ever dealt with in your life, it helps to have a phrase or a mantra like this to pull you through to the other side. So I hope you enjoy this episode. It certainly helped me.
I've spent the last 10 years pushing the limits while identifying trends and patterns in my type 1 diabetes management. Follow along as I learn, apply, and share the fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle strategies that I've learned from diabetes experts around the world. The real question is, how can we live fearlessly with diabetes while maintaining stable blood sugars? This podcast is here to give you the answer. My name is Matt Van de Vecht, head coach and co-founder of FTF Warrior, and welcome to Part of My Pancreas.
So like I said, the last 2 weeks have been gnarly. And if you don't know what gnarly is, gnarly is a Sound of San Diego kind of a phrase where it just means really bad. Actually, technically, gnarly can also mean good. It's a cultural thing. Anyways, really difficult sickness. And it started with sore throat and a cough. It kind of migrated to a sinus issue, and then to ear infection, to constant migraines for 2 weeks. The phlegm. At a certain point, I was coughing up blood. It was a nightmare, to say the least, without getting too far into the details. But now that I'm on the other side of that, I'd like to speak to something that helped me to recognize that I had what it takes to make it through. And that came at the end of my trip to Greece, where I was actually out in Greece for a week with my buddies from high school and college. It was my best friend's wedding. And so he invited us all out there, said, come celebrate with me. And so we did. And of course, I got sick on day one. It was really unfortunate circumstances. But at the end of it, after the wedding, they came back for one final goodbye since we're all heading back to the States. And my best friend and his now wife, both at different points, had approached me and they were like, "Dude, it was such a bummer that you got sick. So sorry to hear about that. How are you doing? Are you okay?" And part of me wanted to be like, it was terrible, and I almost died. I felt like I was on my deathbed. But you can't tell that to the bride and groom. Come on, let them enjoy their honeymoon without thinking that somebody suffered at their wedding. And so I also did, though, want to share that it was difficult. So in the moment, split-second decision, this phrase just came to mind and I went with it, which is, I can survive anything, right? And that phrase both says, I got through it, it's okay, like all is well, right? But it also says, that was really difficult. Because if I'm talking about I can survive, that doesn't say I can thrive, right? That's not me saying, oh, no problem, I felt great the whole time. It was like, whew, I survived, And so I told them both, I can survive anything. And we just kind of left it at that. And I told them it was a beautiful wedding, so grateful that I got to be there for that. And I wasn't going to let some sickness get in the way of it. But as soon as I finished that conversation with them, I realized this is now my new mantra, right? Because it holds true in so many different ways. One, with blood sugars, I can survive anything. We get stuck in these highs and lows all the time, at least I do, right? Where I'll have a high blood sugar. And in that moment, I'll be real with you, I get visibly angry sometimes when it gets stuck. I'm like, what the heck is going on? My wife's like, calm down, we're in public. And when I'm low, there's other emotions that come into play, like actual anxiety, fear. And of course, with my past experiences where low blood sugars literally almost killed me. So it's like, I can survive anything. Can I? It's kind of a little seed of doubt there. But these lows that I've experienced, I did make it through, right? So technically, I survived. I can survive anything. So when it comes to blood sugars in those moments, this is now my new phrase. Sorry, I got to keep clearing my throat. I am still sick. Going on week 3. But with these blood sugars, in the moment, it can feel like this is the end, or this is unfair, or why do I have to deal with this? And if we just flip it to I can survive anything, especially for me with the lows where like fear and anxiety comes into play, and I start wondering if I will survive, right? Like sometimes, be honest, you've had that low where you're like, this might be the end, even though it wasn't, right? But you're like, this is scary. It gets really scary really fast when you have double arrows down at 40 and insulin on board, and you're like, am I going to be able to catch this one, right? So I've discovered, I don't know. I've decided, that's the word I was looking for. I've decided that this is my new mantra. I can survive anything, because here's the thing. Up until this point, that holds 100% true. Nothing has taken me out. So as far as I know, I am invincible, right? I can survive anything. I have survived everything up until this point. So at the very least, I know from looking at my past, I can survive anything, right? And the good news is, if ever I can't survive something, as dark as it is to talk about this, I won't know because I'll be dead, right? So if I can't survive it, I die thinking I could survive it. So who knows, right? Like, I'll never know the other side of it. And all jokes aside, this is something that I think is helpful, at least for me, because when fear comes into the picture, I automatically go to the worst case scenario, right? Where I have a low and I'm like, do I have enough sugar? I don't know. And it's like, I have 200 grams of sugar in my backpack. Of course I'm going to be fine, right? I also have Baqsimi, a glucagon nasal spray. Like, I'm going to be fine. Oh, and if that doesn't work, I've got the hospital, right? Like, I'm going to be fine. But fear clouds my logic a lot of the times. And so having this mantra where I can say, I can survive anything. I can survive anything, right? That's so helpful to fall back on, to lean on, right? But also to remind us of how strong we truly are. To have this disease where it feels like we're constantly being pushed down. It feels like we're constantly being challenged, and there is no break, right? And that part's true. There is no break with type 1 diabetes. But to be reminded that we can survive anything is empowering, right? Like, this disease did not take us out. 100 years ago, well, just over 100 years ago, it would have been a death sentence. And now we have this opportunity to continue living our lives. So it's helpful to remind ourselves that we can survive anything. Now, of course, there's a couple different sides of that equation. One is that I was sick, really sick, in Greece, right? I survived. It wasn't pretty, but I survived. And with blood sugars, it might not look pretty, right? You might hit 40 and go super low and then overtreat and then hit 400 in the same hour. It doesn't look pretty, but you survived. And I think that's the core you got to focus on, is I survived. I continue to fight, right? And this is why I tell you guys, keep up the fight. Every day we have to wake up and choose if we will continue to fight this beast of a disease, or if today is the day we give up. Now, I can tell you, as somebody who can survive anything, that I will not give up. That is not part of my option list, right? It's not part of my vocabulary. I will keep up the fight. And that's why I want to remind you, I want to just continue to push that into your head, that you will keep up the fight, that this is the choice you will continue to make, because what other option do we have? We will keep up the fight. But when we remind ourselves that we can survive anything, it's a lot less scary, right? If you're going into battle, let's say, and you don't know who's going to win. You don't know if your side's going to win and you'll survive, or if the other side's going to win and you're all going to die. That's a scary battle, right? Very scary. But if you go into battle and you're like, our side has 10,000 times more soldiers, and we're like 15 years more advanced in our weaponry. You go into that battle and you're like, we're gonna survive. It might not be pretty, there will still be bloodshed, but we're gonna survive. We're gonna make it through, right? A lot less scary when you think about that. So if you know you're gonna survive, even if it won't look pretty with blood sugars, it takes the pressure off a little bit, right? When I have the high blood sugars, in fact, let's play with it. What am I at right now? Okay, not bad. I'm going up, but 138. Okay, I'll even see if I can show you my graph. Can you, you know what, let's do this. I'm gonna take my watch off so you guys who are watching the video can see my current graph, the reality of diabetes. There you go. I think it showed. You know, if it were high, because I just ate like a giant meal, probably 120 carbs. If my blood sugars were high right now, knowing that I'm going to survive would help to release some of that pressure that I put on myself, right? If I were going low right now and I were nervous, I could say, okay, I'm going to survive. This is going to be okay. Just do what you need to do. Now, the first step of that is to recognize it might not always look pretty, but you're going to survive, right? And that's what the doctor's office is for diabetes. You know, they give you your insulin, they give you your glucometer, maybe a CGM, maybe even an insulin to carb ratio if you're lucky, and you have a decent doctor or endocrinologist. That's step one, is survival. Okay, here, take some insulin when you eat food, you'll figure it out. Cool, I can survive with that. It's not gonna look pretty, but I can survive. Step two, that's into how can I thrive with XYZ situation, right? In this case, diabetes. How can I thrive with type 1 diabetes? Of course, that's where we come in. We help a lot of our clients to fill the gaps of what's missing that would allow them to not just say, I can survive this meal, and to instead say, oh, this is gonna go great. Confidence, right? Certainty. I will thrive through this meal, like me, right? Okay, I have to admit this. Those of you who are new might not know my obsession with this food, but I just had pancakes for lunch. That's what I ate. So I had pancakes, I had dark chocolate peanut butter cups, I had some dates, I had, what else did I have? I don't know. It wasn't like a traditional healthy meal. So to everybody who says, oh, I eat healthy, so I should have good blood sugars. That's not how it works. Not at all. Blood sugars are math equations, okay? Eating healthy foods is good for your body, and I do try to do that most of the time, but that's besides the point. Thriving with type 1 diabetes does require kind of an extra step, right? As with anything else in life, survival versus thriving, very different game plans, very different blueprints. So, you know, if thriving with type 1 diabetes is something that you're struggling with, you know there's some gaps missing and you'd like to get some help with that, we do have a training that goes over the thriving protocol, which what we use is called blood sugar formulas. You can go find that at diabetesinaction.com. I find it ironic that I'm like, you can thrive, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm sick. You know, but with diabetes, with numbers, you know, I still maintained above 90% time in range while feeling like I was on my deathbed. For those of you who don't know, sickness can really throw a wrench in your blood sugar plans. In fact, I have an enormous amount of insulin that I had to shift to match my body fighting off this sickness. Anyways, I'm getting off target. All right. So, diabetesinaction.com. Go check out that training. That will show you your first steps into thriving with type 1 diabetes. Guaranteed there's going to be some golden nuggets, some ahas in there. We talk about blood sugar formulas. It's my favorite thing. It's how I do what I do. That aside, wanted to give you one little golden nugget that I use for my Ironman races. Okay, so I've done a half Ironman. I'm currently training for a full Ironman. If you don't know what that is, it's known as the world's most difficult endurance single day event, or single day endurance event that a human can accomplish. I don't know how I got into this place. I just kind of impulsively said yes enough times, and now I'm doing this crazy thing. But with these races, you know, my last race took over 7 hours, and that's the half. So the next one, I was talking to my coach. He said it could be anywhere from 15 to 18 hours straight of exercise, of really hard exercise. So with that, mindset's really important, right? Because you face some demons mentally when you're just doing something for 7 hours straight that's really hard, right? And if you don't have a powerful mindset, or at least the mental fortitude to push through those hard times, you give up. And people do it all the time. They walk off the course and say, forget it, I can't do this. They collapse, they're done. And so one of the things that has been really helpful for me that also rings true with diabetes is this idea that tomorrow will come. The finish line will come. That this too shall pass. Right? And you've heard that phrase before, this too shall pass, but let's just take a second to break it down, right? This too shall pass means that no matter what it is you're going through right now, no matter how hard it is, I can survive anything, right? It means that tomorrow I'm going to look back on today's difficulty and go, wow, that was tough, but I did it, right? And that's the exciting part. At least you can say that if you don't give up. If you give up, then tomorrow is depressing because you look back and go, I didn't do it. I gave up, right? So don't give up on anything that's important to you, but understanding that this too shall pass, recognizing that when I'm in the middle of a race, I can imagine myself after I finish the race, when I'm celebrating, eating delicious food again, not feeling sick to my stomach, when my legs aren't on fire, I'm in a better place, right? And using that visualization, that imagination, to put me in that place where I will have done it. I will have survived. Right? And remembering what it's like outside of the chaos, outside of this difficulty. When blood sugars are in the mix, and especially if they're high or low, like I was saying earlier, emotions run rampant. It's difficult, right? I'm a different person sometimes when I have high blood sugars or low blood sugars, and it can be really helpful to remember that this will not last. I'm not going to be stuck with a high blood sugar for the rest of my life. I'm going to take some insulin, drink some water, maybe go for a walk, and it's going to come back down eventually, right? Low blood sugars. I'm going to eat some sugar, give it a sec. If it's not coming up, I'm going to eat some more sugar, give it a sec, right? But eventually, I will be in a better place. So recognizing that everything comes to an end is a powerful realization. All of our pain and suffering and difficulty comes to an end, depending on what you believe in, right? I'm a Christian, so I believe too that all the suffering we experience in life will end when we get to heaven, and there's no more suffering. How cool is that, right? But even if you don't believe that, just imagine life as we are. Even if you're an atheist and you're like, nothing happens after we die, that's fine. I'm not going to disrespect anyone else's beliefs. What I want you to understand is that the difficulties you're experiencing right now in life, any suffering, any pain, has an end, one way or another. And recognizing that and acknowledging that pain is temporary, right, allows us to push further and farther than we ever thought. It's what allowed me to get through my races, where I was like, I want to give up. This is super hard. I still have 4 hours left of this stinking race. And then I'm like, well, if you give up, you're never going to forgive yourself. But also, 4 hours from now, you've done silly things for 4 hours, played video games, right? 4 hours passes like nothing. So in the blink of an eye, this race is going to be over. The suffering, the pain is going to be over. Let's focus on that. And choosing where we put our attention, where we put our focus, helps us to shift perspective. So again, I want to reiterate that I and you can survive anything. At worst case scenario, if we can't, you'll never know. So I hope that brings some comfort to you today. For me, it was just in the moment, friend. Hey, how have you been? Oh, such a bummer you're sick. Hey, don't worry about it. I can survive anything. Light bulb moment, right? And I was like, I can survive anything. And I have. And I got an exercise for you as well. Look back on your life. Think about the craziest things that have happened to you. The absolute craziest. And then I want you to take a second and acknowledge the fact that you survived those crazy events. I mean, there's a number of times driving as a teenager, I should have crashed and died. I was an idiot. Okay? Made a lot of terrible decisions. I should be dead multiple times over. But I survived, and I continue to survive. Diabetes, same thing. Diabetes should have killed me a lot of times. All right, there's a few of them that were documented that shocked my doctors, quite frankly. Should be dead, but I can survive anything, and you can too. I hope you find some hope in that. That sounded silly, but you get the point. I hope this message was actually valuable for you and comforting as well. I hope it gives you something to lean on, right? When things are going wrong, when things are difficult, when you're in the midst of pain and suffering and frustration, I can survive anything, and this too shall pass. Think on that. All right, that's all I got for you today. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button. If you know somebody who might benefit from this, be the good in their day. Share it with them. Share it on your other profiles. Get the message out that we can survive anything. And of course, that we're stronger together. By the way, if you want to thrive, like diabetes specifically, then definitely go check out diabetesinaction.com. Go do it right now before you forget, before you miss out. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Have an amazing rest of your day. Choose to thrive and keep up the fight.